Ever stood in the middle of a loud networking mixer, clutching your drink, feeling completely invisible? Like everyone else has a secret script for small talk and you somehow missed the memo? Here's the truth. You aren't boring, and you certainly aren't broken. You're just playing the wrong game. I'm going to show you how to stop being the quiet one without faking a loud personality. But there is one specific mistake you're likely making right now that signals stay away. I'm saving the fix for the very end because once you see it, everything changes. Let me start with a confession that changed everything for me. I used to treat every social interaction like a performance I was destined to fail. Whether it was the mandatory office holiday party or a casual 4th of July barbecue, my strategy was always the same. Fake it until you make it. I believed that to be successful in America, you had to be the alpha, the guy holding court, telling the loudest jokes, and dominating the room. So, I tried to be him. I would force myself into circles, interrupting people just to be heard, laughing at things I didn't find funny. It never worked. I felt like a fraud. Within 30 minutes, my battery would die. I would end up retreating to the bathroom just to breathe, or standing in the corner scrolling through old emails on my phone, praying no one would notice I was alone. I looked at the natural extroverts high-fiving across the room and thought, what is wrong with me? Why is this so hard? I was convinced I was broken. But then I discovered something that flipped the script. I wasn't broken. I was just confusing two very different things. I was mixing up introversion with social anxiety. Most of us do this. We think quiet means scared. However, the data tells a different story. According to studies on social situations from 2022, there is a massive difference in the mechanism. Social anxiety is driven by the fear of negative evaluation. It is that tightening in your chest because you are terrified people are judging your every word. It is the belief that you are under a microscope. That is a hurdle you have to clear. However, introversion is not fear. It is biology. It is a preference for how you process the world. If you are standing at the water cooler and you don't speak up because you are afraid you'll sound stupid, that is anxiety. But if you don't speak up because you are content listening and don't feel the need to fill the silence with noise, that is introversion. And here is the twist. You do not need to cure introversion. I spent years trying to force enthusiasm to kill the introvert inside me. I thought if I wasn't the loudest, I was invisible. But I was wrong. The moment I realized my silence wasn't a defect, but a different way of engaging, the pressure vanished. You don't need to pretend to be the loud one to be powerful. In fact, trying to be loud is exactly what makes you look insecure. Real confidence isn't about changing who you are. It's about understanding how your machine works. We live in a culture that worships the extrovert ideal. In America, we are taught from kindergarten that the leader is the kid raising their hand the fastest. We think the guy shouting the loudest at the sports bar during the Super Bowl is the most confident. We assume the person dominating the brainstorming session with endless ideas is the smartest. So, naturally, when you walk into a room, you try to emulate that. You try to be the life of the party. You force yourself into rapid-fire small talk about the weather, the game, or the traffic. And then, about 20 minutes later, you crash. You feel a physical weight in your chest. You get irritable. You just want to go home and stare at a wall. Here is what nobody tells you about your battery. You aren't tired because you are weak. You are tired because you are running an operating system that wasn't built for that specific kind of data processing. The reason small talk feels so heavy is actually biological. Recent insights from Psychology Today in 2025 highlight exactly why this happens. The enormity of small talk for an introvert isn't just that it's boring. It's that it is high-stimulus noise. It requires constant, fast-paced monitoring of social cues without any real connection. However, the same research confirms something crucial. Introverts feel more comfortable and actually energized in low-stimulus environments. This is the key. You don't hate talking. You hate the noise. You prefer one-on-one interactions or small groups where the stimulus is manageable and the connection is deep. Therefore, the mistake you are making is trying to play the extrovert's game on their home turf. You are trying to work the room. Stop doing that. You are not a politician. The shift is simple but counterintuitive. Instead of trying to amplify your volume to match the room, you need to lower the stimulus of your interactions. When you are in that loud bar or that chaotic networking event, stop trying to join the biggest group laughing in the center. That is a trap. Instead, look for the quiet pockets. Look for the one or two other people who are also standing slightly outside the chaos. They are everywhere. Move towards them, and when you get there, skip the small talk. Don't ask, "Crazy weather, huh?" That is dead energy. Go for depth immediately. Ask, "How do you know the host?" Or, "What are you working on that's keeping you busy lately?" When you switch from high-frequency noise to low-frequency depth, your battery stops draining. You stop surviving the event and actually start connecting. You aren't failing at being social. You are just failing at being superficial. And honestly, that is a strength, not a weakness. Now, let's talk about the biggest lie in corporate America. We are conditioned to believe that in any meeting or group discussion, the person talking the most is the person winning. We see it in every brainstorming session. There's always that one guy who just loves the sound of his own voice. He interrupts, he repeats points, he fills the air with buzzwords like synergy and blue sky thinking. And you sit there, quiet, feeling like you're failing because you aren't fighting for the microphone. But here is the twist. That guy isn't winning. He's just noisy. And usually, everyone else in the room is secretly rolling their eyes. You have a secret weapon that he doesn't have. It's called co-construction. This isn't just a fancy business term. It's actually how your brain works best. Research from the National Institutes of Health in 2020 found something fascinating about how we operate in groups. It turns out that while extroverts often compete to dominate the conversation, introverts naturally work together to co-construct solutions. They are less likely to try to own the floor, and instead, focus on building the answer. Think about that. While everyone else is playing king of the hill, trying to push their idea to the top, you are the architect. You are the one seeing how the pieces fit together. This is your leverage. So, how do you use this without getting run over? You stop trying to be a broadcaster, and you start being a synthesizer. Here is exactly how to do it in your next meeting. Imagine the chaos. Ideas are flying everywhere, people are arguing, the energy is high, but the direction is lost. Most people think they need to jump in and shout, "I have an idea." Don't do that. Instead, wait. Let them exhaust their energy. Listen to the fragments. Person A says we need to cut costs. Person B says we need better quality. They think they are disagreeing. You, sitting quietly, realize they are actually talking about efficiency. When the noise dips, and it always dips, that is your moment. You don't need a monologue, you just need one sentence. You say, "It sounds like what we are really solving for here isn't cost versus quality, but efficiency. What if we did X?" That is co-construction. You didn't dominate the conversation. You didn't have to be the loudest. You just took the chaotic bricks everyone else threw on the table and built the wall. Suddenly, the room turns to you, not because you demanded attention, but because you provided clarity. In a world of constant noise, the person who makes sense is the person who holds the power. You become the final piece of the puzzle. Therefore, stop feeling guilty for not speaking first. Let the broadcasters tire themselves out. Your silence isn't emptiness, it's data gathering. And when you finally do speak, make sure it's the piece that completes the picture. That is how you win the room without ever raising your voice. Now, remember the twist I promised you at the very beginning? The one specific thing you are probably doing wrong right now that makes you invisible? Here it is. You think you are invisible because you are quiet. However, you are actually invisible because you are closed. Picture yourself at that party last week. You felt awkward. The noise was overwhelming. So what did you do? You pulled out your phone. You started scrolling through Instagram or checking emails that didn't exist. You crossed your arms over your chest. You hunched your shoulders slightly forward. You think you looked busy. You think you looked occupied. But to everyone else in the room, You looked like a fortress with the drawbridge pulled up. Your body language was screaming a giant neon sign that said, "Do not talk to me. I am terrified. Stay away." This is the deadly mistake. You are using your phone as a security blanket, and it works. It protects you from rejection, but it also guarantees isolation. Magnetic people do the exact opposite. They master the magnetic silence. Next time you feel that urge to hide, stop. Put the phone in your pocket. Leave it there. Stand with your feet shoulder-width apart. Roll your shoulders back. Expose your chest. Uncross your arms. Let them hang by your sides. It feels vulnerable, doesn't it? It feels like you have no armor. But that is the point. And here is the secret sauce: eye contact. In the US, we value directness. When you scan the room and catch someone's eye, don't look down in panic. Hold it, just for 1 second. Give a tiny, almost imperceptible nod, a small smile. That's it. You didn't say a word. You didn't have to be funny. But you just sent a powerful signal that says, "I am here, I am comfortable, I am open." And you will be shocked by what happens next. People will start walking over to you. They will ask you questions. Because in a room full of people trying desperately to impress each other, the person who is simply comfortable in their own silence is the most interesting person there. We live in a world that is terrified of silence. Everyone is fighting for airtime, convinced that volume equals value. But look around. The world doesn't need more noise. We are drowning in it. What we are starving for is someone who actually listens, someone who thinks before they speak, someone who doesn't need to perform just to feel worthy. So, stop trying to fix yourself. You don't need to become an extrovert to matter. You just need to be your best, quiet self. Because in a room full of people shouting to be heard, the one worth listening to is usually the one who knows when to stay silent.